Okay, I do believe we are live,
Hey,
and nobody's in the chat room yet. Guys, when I'm live now, I have my little follow your chat things on a tiny little computer next to my big screen. So if you want to ask a question, please type it in big uppercase letters because that makes it easier for me to read. My old eyes just don't do that well with that stuff anymore. And I still don't see any viewers, but I did put it out. Did you see your little
uh,
announcement?
I did not. I didn't know we were going live,
Oh,
so
it's this squirrel dressed in medieval armor, and it said, "Let's go for shenanigans. It's Friday." We have GGB is on, so they're starting to come in. So we're starting to get
I
them.
be
She's
I
hello, and I was just about to explain to Danny sort of the rundown of the show. Today I want to. I always start with a crystal of the day, and I pulled this at 9 o'clock this morning, and it's crocosite, and it's this stone. We got all one viewer, crocosite,
oh
and it means sexuality. And the thing about this stone is, it's just a gorgeous stone, but it's only found in Tasmania. It's
wow
part of the old development of minerals that happened, and because some of the oldest ground in the world is actually in Australia and Tasmania. So, and it's a vibrant orange, and it's like spiky little crystals. It would be like not a
yeah
stone you'd want to carry around. It's something you'd want to show off, and it means it's related to the sacral chakra. It's a one of a kind medicine that deeply resonates and vibrates through your entire life force energy. It works closely with the fire element, assisting in burning away blockages and stopping the creative and stoking the creative flame in the universal life. Now, it means it activates the Kundalini energy. It invokes deep sexual and life force energy. It deepens connections on sensuality. It enhances the tantric union, and it assists in expressing creativity. And this card appears at a time when you are going to open up to powerful new life forces. And I kind of think that's true of shamanism. I think it's a very basic, push the life force to the front kind of energy, don't you?
yeah I do, and I mean, there's there's so many different ways that well, it's so simple. Shamanism is so simple. It takes an earthly plane and it allows us to go into the unseen world.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives us a series of tools to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And as our veil gets thinner and thinner, more of us are able to do that. Now, and I think that there are certain practices in shamanism that we have to be careful of so that um, we don't attach anything to us that shouldn't be attached.
Mm-hmm.
But for us to go through that veil in what they call journeys,
Mm-hmm.
so that we could go to the lower world, the middle world, the upper world, to talk to the unseen spirits, our spirit guides, our power animals,
Mm-hmm.
the nature folk, to ask them for guidance and help along our journey is becoming easier and easier. And for me, that's what I focus on, not so much the healing aspect of it, but it's the healing of me aspect in
Mm-hmm.
shamanism,
Yeah.
and going through that veil. And we all get to do that a little bit if we choose to take that path.
Well, one of the things I found, I read, I think, the same encyclopedic thing you did. By the way, the picture of the little guy in the bathrobe beating his shaman drum is not Danny. He's actually he's actually a picture from 1758 that was drawn by a person who was discovering, from the Western point of view, discovering Mongolia, and he was a Mongolian shaman, which is actually, as Danny and I were discussing earlier, that's where the word shaman comes from. It comes from SA and then a little mark and an MAN, and it means Sa means to know, and man means to do. So it's to know what to do. And that's what their definition of shaman was. And so shamanism really comes out of the first definitions of it come out of that world. But what's happened is they folded in the Druids and the people in the Oceania and people in Native American traditions and South American traditions and I guess even the freak with the antlers in the Capitol. He was trying to be a shaman. But definitely a person dealing with the lower forces.
Yeah, that was fairly offensive to me, but it, this whole, this
Well, we're not
whole
going in there. That's the lower realm. We're going to talk about
it's
how
fairly
we use...
offensive, right? The thing that you were just saying right there, so thank you for shifting me out of that really quick, just kind of like a slap. Get out of that, Dan.
That we don't do that here. We don't do that here.
The thing that you were mentioning, where everything is all folded together in the, with like the Druids and the different nationalities, there was no, all they had was a tin can with string. Okay, I'm kidding. I mean, they didn't have any cell phones. They didn't have any way to communicate through the world. Yet every cultures throughout the world were practicing the same form, and we can use the simple term divination, right? But seeing beyond the veil to get prophecies, to get healing, to manage our lives in a higher realm.
Right.
And to me, that is fascinating. Using plants for medicine, they all did that, but only a certain person could do that. And the other people, I guess, were just too busy with their lives. And my question is it our freedoms that we have today, so that even though so many of us are so busy, but a lot of us have a lot of time on our hands now, we do have more time, is that allowing the veil to become thinner?
I think moving out of the cloud that protected us from subatomic particles is part of what's making the veil thinner. I think it's what Kim and I talked about yesterday. We're actually changing our DNA. So we're actually so we're getting the part down at a cellular level. We're getting to where we can more closely feel these things. But like all of the cultures that have some sort of medicine man, medicine woman, druid, priestess, whatever, seer, however you define it, those people were revered in their communities, and they were the de facto leader after the military leader, if that's what was required, of protection that way. So this is protection for the spirit and the mind of the community. And one of the things that I read that was kind of interesting is how many of them all use crystals, and almost all of them considered quartz the primary crystal for communication. And there's several of them that when you read into more of what their belief systems were, crystals were the brain of the world. The energy on the crystals is what was connecting everything so that everything went. So that's why when they were having feudal Japan, we were having feudal Europe. I mean, the world history, if you study real world history and look at it over time, all these patterns are happening at the same time. What broke it up? The Black Plague. It destroyed Europe and killed half its population, so they had to restructure. Same thing happened in China. They had the diseases that came and went. That's why South America, which had been isolated from that, when the conquistadors came, all those diseases that they had now developed immunities to just swept through those people. So there's a whole lot of ways that these things show up over and over again. And I know Dannay and I, when we were first talking to each other, I was talking to him about ordering his crystals, and he cleaned them up on his desk, and he went, "You're right. They're like all talking. They're sitting here talking to each other." And they're sitting there the whole time, and they're just like, "You're paying attention now." I think some of it is that we're slowed down
Yeah.
enough now to pay attention and to
Yeah.
have to, because we're not running to the next tennis match with an old friend and that sort of stuff because nobody wants to get sick. Um, so, and people are commenting they have crystal clear quartz that they're using to communicate with their guides. That's a really common way that they do it. That's part of my world. But I knew Dannay had spent a little more time talking to people who officially called themselves shamans of some sort, and than I have. I've been around a few of them. One shaman taught me a very important lesson. She said, put your hands out 1.5 feet. That's where your heart energy really is. Don't let anyone that you don't trust closer than that 1.5 feet. And because it makes really a little circle around your body. If you read if you go to Heart Math, which is something that's also on YouTube, you can look that sort of stuff up. I did get a couple questions from the community, and one I have to answer right now, and it's a little outside shamanism, but not really, because it is talking to the other side. But this particular person asked yesterday, and they were the one person who left a question, and it was about their family members on the other side, and I know she has some concerns about this, so we're going to real quickly do this, and then no more. If you want to talk about dead people, come back next week. This is a card I pulled for you, and it's I feel happy and healthy and happy, and it says, I can now do amazing things I never dreamed were possible. It feels like I'm doing them in a physical body, except I'm lighter, freer, and more flexible. I can do acrobatics, I can fly, I can jump as high as a mountain. It's magical here. And then their conclusion is their message to you. The main thing I want to emphasize for you, though, is all the aches and pains and suffering went away with my physical body. I can breathe, see, walk like a healthy young person. All the limitations are gone. I also see how I could have taken much better care of myself physically and enjoyed better health. I hope you will take that to heart too. After all, we only get one physical body in this lifetime, so use it well. Okay, that's the only one that's out of order. The other question for you, Dannay, that came in that was direct this to Dannay.
That was powerful. What you just said, that was so powerful.
And I know, and I really felt badly because she wrote me last night and said you didn't read my question, and I said I'd pulled it, but Medium Kim, that woman gets going in. And she was doing so much good stuff with us, and it was about healing your body and staying centered. So,
yeah.
But your question is Rolling Thunder. A guy who worked with Rolling Thunder, and he also worked with Grateful Dead, and a guy named Stanley Krippner. I don't know rock bands, but her question is, did this musician use shamanic traditions when he worked with them? Did he bring that element into their? Do you ever know about the Grateful Dead having that in their music?
I don't. I know that Mickey Hart. What was the other guy's name?
Stanley, Krippner.
Krippner. I don't know if he was a drummer. I'd have to look that up and see who he was. But there was Mickey Hart and this other drummer of the Grateful Dead. They did a lot of just drumming.
Right, drum solos, right.
Drum solo, but even I think they had their own music where it was more, and it felt like more shamanic.
Mm-hmm.
And that was before I was
interested.
That I knew about shamanism. So I'm really a new age shamanic practitioner, and I do it for myself. I wouldn't consider myself somebody that you would go to for lessons or things like that. There are other people that can guide you way better. I'm still in the very beginning stages of this. But they were doing some kind of rhythmic drumming, and it was really long, and I did listen to it, and I'm going, well, this is kind of boring. But if I would listen to it now, it would be, this is kind of getting me into that drum ritual chant that the shamans use to get into that altered state, to go in between the veils. And there's different ways that we can do this, some with meditation, some with, if they just hear a shamanic resonance or something. Shamans use the drum and the rattle for the rhythmic beat to let them go into the altered state.
One of the shamans I knew had a rain stick, and they turned the rain stick. If you've never seen one, it looks like a big piece of bamboo, and it's got little things in it that makes a rain sound. They use the rain stick to recreate that veil like rain creates around us, where it attaches our spirit through the water.
Right.
But they also said, in some of the reading I did, they did mantras, meditations. Yoga has brought a lot of people into shamanism because it makes you change understand your body and kind of deal with it in a different way. And rituals of all types are part of all of the shamans. But one of the articles I read that was kind of funny, it was like, if shamans were so powerful, how come they all went away? Or, seemingly in main cultures went away. Well, that had a whole lot to do with the Catholic Church, which they don't call themselves shamans, they call themselves priests. But man, they don't want any competition. And
yes.
And one of the funniest stories I read was that the story about St. Patrick driving the snakes out of Ireland. There were no snakes in Ireland. It got isolated early and it never got snakes. But what they were talking about was driving the Druids off, because they always viewed them as the snakes. And so wherever the Catholic Church or any Bible-bound Orthodox theocracy went in, they would get rid of the shamans. And they do it in the Muslim faith too. They drive them out. I mean, we're not alone in that.
Well, and I think there's another reason why there are not the great shamans that there were, besides that we're humans and we're gonna die, but someone needs to come up and take place. And one of the first books that I read about shamanism was Wisdom and Power, about the great Lakota shaman Frank Foolscrow. And he was asked that question, and he said very few people today, very few young people today have the want to live a simple life, to live a pious life, and to go through the years and years and years of being a religious person. It's all, they want it too fast. They want things now. They're not spending the time necessary to be a great shaman. And so it's that quality that, who wants to, he lived a very pious life. He didn't charge for any of his readings, or any of his healings. He accepted gifts. But when you look at him and you read his book, there were certain things that I would go, why are you letting these people take advantage of you and live in your house and eat all your food? And he goes, well, that's where they are and this is where I am. I'm giving and they're taking, but I'm gonna still give. And it's hard to think in those terms. But anyway, the bottom line is there's a lot of people that aren't willing to sacrifice to become one of those shamans.
Yeah, and when we're talking about divination tools, which is why Danny's here, because we're doing a whole different ways to look at divination and how it works, it takes time. I tell people the only way you can learn how to read cards is to read cards.
Right.
And if you have to have the book beside you and look up the answer, that's fine. Because until it becomes that integrated into you, so I can see where the discipline of a life worth of learning, and there's just not that many, you're right, there's just not that many people that are willing to dedicate themselves to, in particular, the nature study, because it requires watching things season over season. I am always amazed when they go back and they look at these ancient astrological tools that were developed in Central and South America. And I know the whole thing about aliens came in and helped them, kind of gave them a crib course. But someone still had to stick around and figure out that this cycle of Venus was going to be however many thousands of years. Yeah. And, it takes a whole lot of everybody writing it down and everybody understanding what the guy ahead of them said. This is not like telephone when we play it, where it starts off as one thing, 5 people later, it's not even the same damn story.
Right. The other thing, too, it's interesting you said that, because there's a few sites in North America that you can access. Chaco Canyon and I'm going to mispronounce this. There's some ruins in Illinois, Chokia. I'm going to mispronounce that. But they are, the mounds in Illinois, they're still covered up. They're not uncovered. Mm-hmm. But the Chaco Canyon ones, they spent, and there's a documentary on it that you can find on Netflix, and if you just Google it, there's a couple of documentaries on it. But they studied the astrological movement of the sun and the moon. They spent like 19 years or 17 years studying just the phases of the moon, and they aligned their buildings up to that. And to me, that is like phenomenal. 19 years of studying just the moon. I mean, I have a hard time looking at the full moon for like an hour. And then I'm going, okay.
Or remembering it was there. I mean, how do I know it was there and not over the next night over there? Yeah.
And so these people documented it and set their buildings up, decided when to plant, when's the best time to plant, when is water going to be coming up from the ground for the plants. They studied all of this with just their tapping into spirit and watching and being aware of the cycles. It's fascinating. We don't have time to do that these days.
Well, someone did send us a question, and it's why are certain Texas leaders putting out negative energy? Because they were born that way. Honest to God, guys, I've met these people. They were born that way. But she said that there's a group called Texas Citizens for Positive Healing and Energy, and they're trying to get their spirits together. And that's the way to combat this. And that's a way to kind of short circuit into the more positive things. Because, see, the shamans had time. They also had the trust of the people they were leading, until, as Dannay has an unfortunate past life experience, they didn't. But but the thing is that part of shamans, being a shaman, is being assisted by the belief of the group.
Yeah.
And understanding that energy. And, and shamans went through a whole lot of training and initiations, and there's actually some people who, in some of the groups, where the shaman was a bloodline thing. You had to be in the... Isn't it Cohen in the Jewish faith? They always end up being priests. That was of the tribe. They were the ones that ended up being the high priests, I think.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not that familiar, so I would.
Well, I grew up with a Cohen. I grew up with a Cohen, and that's what he used to tell me. And then I heard it in a documentary, and I went, "Oh, he wasn't BSing me. I was just trying to make me impressed." Sharon Sipe is dragon slaying for us. So.
Who's that?
Sharon Sipe is dragon slaying for us.
Oh, good for you! Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, I did pull up the chat. I see some people. Yay. Hi, everybody.
Do you like your bathrobe picture? Can you see it in your chat?
No. Oh, yeah. There it is. Look at that.
Looks a little like you out having a wild time, Danny.
It is. It is me.
It is. It actually kind of did. When tech support put him on the show, he said, that looks a little like Danny. Have you cleared this with him? People, first you're showing up with rollers in your hair, and now you're wearing antlers. I mean, really. Can't get
Check
the
out
man.
the check out the calves.
I know.
Oh my God, that guy's got some calves.
Well, he's
A friend
dancing
of
with
mine-
that damn drum.
Yeah. So, well, but it's interesting that you were talking about this coalition of light workers in Texas, because I ran across somebody who was just. I mean, the energy field was so negative, and I tried to say something, and I just had to shut myself down from saying, trying to combat his negativity. And, I was just like, how do we deal with this energy? And this morning when I was meditating, that idea came to me once again so strong. I know it's true, but I keep forgetting that we as a collective, even though we say hopes and prayers, and that kind of gets lost in just lip service, but if we actually get together and focus our energy towards a higher vibration, that will change things.
It will.
We can change things. Yeah.
We can make a lot of differences, individuals, and sometimes it's hard because we look like we're living in, because I live in Texas, guys. I live in the middle of the damn swamp, but you have to go out and you have to spread the light and have to spread the truth and have to be the light and be the truth. It's not just go tell somebody else how to do it. It means really I had someone who called me up and they were talking to me and they were like, they have a friend who doesn't believe in vaccinations and, is totally following the party line from the other party. And I just said, stop. I don't want to hear about this anymore. And he goes, well, it's not facing reality. And I said, no, you're pumping up his reality. And then my friend, this is when the conversation got real cut off. He said, well, I just hope he gets COVID so he'll understand. And I said, no. You don't want to do that. That's cause that energy will eat your own soul. And so and it's not being unrealistic. It's not being a Pollyanna. It's saying that for me, my thoughts have to stay on this level or I'm going south. And I'm already south enough.
Right. And that was true when I ran across this guy. My energy level was just so low in trying to figure out how to change his point of view. And that's not my job.
No.
To change anybody's point of view. My job is to stay in a higher vibration. For me,
right.
Is to stay happy and let that be. Why are you so damn happy? Well, because I'm up here. Maybe, you can not be thinking these negative thoughts. But anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Leading by happiness and joy.
And do you ever do trance-like things other than meditating? Do you go into trance things? Trance?
Yeah. Why are you asking me this?
You don't have to answer anything.
I know, but yes, I have, and I have been thinking of this, and I have been getting into it quite a lot more than I used to, and it scares me a little bit. So not in it, but just what to do with it.
Well, part of that to me is when I was reading on how they trained with shamans. So, if you started to drift off, they had to do like kind of kite string and they could bring you back. And I think when we try to do some of these things on our own, without any guidance, without any real understanding, without
Right.
anyone there help, knowing we have someone securely holding on to us. And I'm not talking about eating silly mushrooms and things, although that is one way people achieve this.
Yes.
I'm talking about, I did some binaural beats one time, and I really felt this energy just totally wrapping around my legs and coming up my body. And it wasn't negative, it was like a nice warm blanket, you know.
Mm.
But I was very aware that I was going into a very altered state. So the next time I listened to it, I said I needed better signals so that I knew when that was coming. And that worked. So you can prepare your own mind for it. But I don't think these are things that, when you get into the real heavy duty shamans that were like with tribes and things, I don't think the things they did alone. They did it within the spirit of the group.
Yeah. And I'm not sure about that, but I do know that I do know that grounding is hugely important
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing this kind of work. You need to and I love Medium Kim's video that you all did yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and she like doing her grounding.
Her diamond points, yes.
Yep, yep. And it, you know, that's just so important. And there's online training because of COVID and everything's kind of shut
Mm-hmm.
down. The Shift Network has these online trainings that you can do with Sandra Ingerman, and I think there's one. There's a lot, and I can add some. I can send some. You can put
Okay,
it down
we'll
below
throw
if
it.
you want.
Okay.
But one of the things that when you're doing a shamanic journey, you know, as long as you get your grounding prayer right and you do ground yourself, you get your I call it a pre-meditation before you journey. And when they're using the rhythmic drum to get you through the veil, they will always do a return beat that'll bring you back down to
Right.
the planet. And in that, once you get back down here, then you slowly move your toes and arms and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't like just stand up and fall over again. But some people go way deep into that.
Mm-hmm.
And that return beat is so important, and it kind of just pulls them back
Mm-hmm.
down or back up. If they go down into the lower world, pulls them
Mm-hmm.
back up into where we are today. And that's hugely important.
Yes. Okay, so
So-
some people are writing in the chat about having had remarkable things with shamans, but they're not putting it in caps, so I don't know if it's a question. The other thing is societal roles, and I thought this one was kind of funny because I kind of got into it with someone about this. They were like, well, if you have all these gifts and they just came from the universe, why aren't you just giving it to us? You know, why aren't you just, you know?
Good question.
And in almost all shamanic cultures,
Yeah.
the shaman was sort of the person that people gave in, knowing that this part of their giving to the tribe or giving to their group or giving to the circle was going to support them, because they can't live on air. And to some extent, I think that happens with us. A lot of us do give things away periodically, but you can't do it every day. And you've got to, you know, I have to pay the electric bill so that I can run these things at 1 o'clock. And, you know, we all have overheads and things. And so I thought about that. And the other thing it talked about that struck home with me is, I know Dannay and I have talked about it with other readers. When you read someone and then they come back to you 4 months later and they say, remember when you said, and you kind of go, did I? I mean, we're not being rude, but we're not, the person who has to be in this
Right.
world isn't always there. So it's kind of a translate state when we read. So I'm always telling people, take good notes, because it's not just that I'm old. I didn't remember when I was young. So
Right. You know, and that's an interesting thing that you bring up. not that you're old.
I'm aging backwards, according to my doctor. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes. But what you said about payment for, why don't you just give this away for free? The shamans of old, you are absolutely right. The community did take care of them, and the community took care of itself. So a lot of times they would share food and all this stuff. Today it's not like that. It's a different culture today. And so what I find is that the way that we have evolved in our society is that if you give something away for free, so many times people will think it has zero value, and which kind of blows my mind. Well, why do you think that has zero value? And other times too, when that question comes up, when you ask that question, why don't you just give it away for free? The Lakota shaman that I was talking about, he was saying, he didn't charge, but he accepted gifts. And so my question to that person who asked, why don't you give it away free, is why don't you appreciate and offer gifts to the reader? I mean, it goes back and forth. There needs to be a give and take. And it's just not, let me take this from you because it's free. There also has to be a giving back somehow.
Ronnie just said you can't give back from an empty cup. And that's what I always tell people. If I give, then that my receiving side is going to atrophy to where I'm out of balance, and you don't want to deal with readers that aren't in balance. Trust me.
Right. Yeah.
So what are your plans to work with these shaman things stuff?
Where I am with this is, I definitely want to get into a face-to-face group with some shamanic teachers, and that's been a real struggle, obviously, with COVID. I want to progress in my, I think it's my ease of transition. So when I first started this, it took a lot of preparation to get into my state of going to the upper world or lower world, and it's been getting easier and easier. And it's not so much less preparation as it's my preparation starts in the morning now, with my morning prayers and my morning rituals, and that sets up my whole day. So it allows me to get into this space a lot easier. And so that's what I want to focus on, just getting into that space where I get to open up my mind's eye, where I get to open up my tools of divination easier. And I just want to work with how we can live through these changes, because right now I feel, and I was thinking about what I was going to do for Sunday with Spirit, and it feels like I got an image of a big college party, and there's a keg of beer that's half drank. There's a couple of kegs that are knocked over, and there's trash everywhere. And I kind of feel that's where we are. We need to clean this up and move to, get ready for the next party that's coming along. And so right now we're just in the cleaning up space. And so I want to figure out how me, can help with this cleanup process so that we can get to the next party. And that's what I want to use my shamanic tools and hopefully find some, I shouldn't use the word hopefully, but to find some facilitator to help me on this path.
Right. Right. I'm going to show y'all on the garden, which is kind of why this show got started. In the center of the garden is earth, fire, water, and air. And I gave them the directionals that are normally tuned with them through Native American shamanism, which is air is north, earth is east, fire is south, and water is west. And the crystals that I match with them, these crystals, I don't roll these into the garden. They sit on the corners and they kind of watch the garden. They kind of build an arch of energy over the garden. And earth is quartz, fire is serpentine. And if you don't know what serpentine is, it's a green stone, and it actually becomes, if it gets hard, if it gets in the right set of circumstances, it becomes jade. It becomes green jade. Angelite is water, and agate is air, and it's white. And quartz is things that are coming towards you. All quartz crystals have 6 primary metaphysical properties. They are energetically structure, storage, amplify, focus, and transmit, which is when things are being unearthed, that's what's coming towards you. The agate, which is air, that's thoughts and emotional energy and sort of the release of our body of energy. And this beautiful stone helps you overcome negativity and negative emotions, slowly bringing love into your heart by bringing the love towards you. White agate helps you overcome negative emotions, sadness and loneliness, and that's the things you want to move away from you. Water is wait a minute, I get these messed up. Fire is serpentine, and it's past life energy. It's deep spiritual awakening. It's also an unearthing stone. It aids in mediation, enhances our ability to explore and go forward. And angelite is letting go of energy, promise to surrender to higher purposes, letting go, clearing up. So when I looked at some shamanic wheels, it's like it comes from the earth, it goes to the water so it can move away. It comes out of the flames of our past, and it moves up through our higher consciousness and moves out. So that's how shamans are on the garden, just in case you wanted to know.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were all sitting at home dying, where the hell is shamans on the garden?
and I do that every morning. I give thanks to the sun coming up. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't know if it's going to come up every mm-hmm. day. So, but I face the east, power animals, and then I go through the 4 directions. I then go again with the angel energy and the color energy. And the thing that I find that is so interesting in this, when I first started out, it was just directions. Mm-hmm. And now each direction attaches to the other direction. Mm-hmm. So with the east, when you have something coming in, you have to let something go.
Right.
And that's to the west. Or if you let something go, then you can allow something to come in mm-hmm. from the east. So you can't keep adding things in. You have to let something mm-hmm. go. And for example, if we're working on a healing or healing somebody or yourself, mm-hmm. In shamanic cultures, if you take that negative energy, that past life, something out that is causing an illness, fill it with something, because mm-hmm. you don't want that hole left in you.
Right.
So you want to fill it with love, mm-hmm. light, something good. And so when I go to the north, the true direction that we go to, well, where do we get our true direction from? Well, we get it from the south, from our ancestors, from mm-hmm. the people who have gone before us, from our past lives. Now, we don't get to keep all of our past lives because some of them, they're not all that great. They were learning tools, but if they're not serving us, then bring them on up into the West and let them go so that we can find our true direction. So I love that you have the Northeast, South, and West on this, so to allow us to bring stuff in, to let things go, to respect our history, and to look forward to the future.
Yep, and according to Vivian, who's in Puerto Rico, and she knows everything. No, she works with the garden every day, and she's the one who argues with me. I used to say, lay it out, and then how things lay out is what, don't obsess on, is this one always facing towards me? She was putting her garden out, and it said, no, north needs to be north. And she goes to the voices, and she says, but I don't know where north is. I live in this apartment, I don't know where north is, And they said, it's on your phone. And she didn't even know she had a compass function on her phone. So she found it, and she figured out which way was north. So now she had to reset up her table so her north is north. I found that it works for figuring out where people are. When I was testing the garden, I'd say, da-da-da lives where from me, and if they live further in towards the heart of Dallas, it's south of where I am. And if they lived in one of the northern suburbs, it would be north, and there was east and west. And it really, that part worked, and I went, okay, I guess. That's why it's on there, because that's another thing that's sometimes hard with cards is direction.
Yeah. So with this, are you saying, according to Vivian, and that's true for her, but is as the one that has put this together with your guides, are they saying?
No, my guides tell me I'm writing a page. There'll be a page in the instructions for the people who take my course, and it says Vivian says, and you have to read it. If that strikes you as absolutely true, then go with Vivian. But
Right.
As Vivian said to me the day she was lecturing me about how north needed to be north, and she said, but you know what it says in your instructions? You be you. If you just sent the thing out, then you just be you. And what I like is when I kind of spin it around to get a variety of lays of things. So it's really going to be, the garden is, it's so new, it has so few rules. It's kind of write your own.
Right. And so my perspective on this, when we're looking at this and we're thinking about it, if you just throw the garden down on your table, and wherever the directions are, let's say north is actually facing the
east.
True east.
Right.
Well, that may be your true direction to go in, is look for something new coming your way.
Right. So
so you can play with those.
Right. There's so much, and that's why it's taking forever. But hopefully in the second week of September, by then everyone will have gotten their note, and anybody who owns the garden will have a password to be able to pull the longer, bigger, fatter book I never wanted to write down, and those sorts of issues are there. And so anybody who's watching this who has a garden, if you have found something. Feeling so lost. Okay, I got one lady who wants a question answered today, so we'll get to that. But what I'm going to tell you is, if you have a garden and you get my when you get it, you'll have a way to draw it down. You'll have a way to draw down the book. You can draw it down as a PDF if you want to print it, so you have a hard copy to work with. That's fine too. If you don't have a printer, please do not write me to mail it to you, because I weighed it already. It's too expensive. You just put it
That's
up.
That's a lot of words.
It's all of the spaces and the visions I had for each of the spaces, and now I'm discussing the mechanics. And what's most interesting is when people are telling me how they learn to work with it. One and done. Pick a stone up and toss it. One woman had just started a new exercise regimen, and she started them before, and they've just never worked out. But this time she's doing it with her daughter. They're doing a whole diet thing. And she came home and she just said, oh, really? So it's kind of her, picked up the pyrite, which is her values. She tossed it in and she got go for it. So she said, I'm going for it now. You know? I mean, play with it. It's when I was 12 and I was using tarot, trust me, I wasn't looking for the center of the universe or understanding I was getting closer to the center of God. I was reading cards. And,
Right.
and that's what you should
Right.
do. This I'm going to read real quickly the lady who says she's feeling so lost to try and help her. And everybody understands that if you're listening to this reading, it's going to have some message for you. And then we'll kind of wrap up the shaman because I promised Dannay I wouldn't keep him forever, and we're getting close to an hour. Okay, so list. Well, you've got a whole lot of things. You're moving out of stuff. You spiritually, you're not lost at all. What you're feeling is you're insecure. You've got spirit and go for it. And go for it's like the hitting a hole in one. Your spirit needs to move forward, and it's moving forward, and that's why you're feeling so lost, because you've got all these new thoughts and feelings, and your old ego-based brain keeps coming and saying, you don't know that. That can't happen that way. Your mind is spinning 90 to nothing. Your body is feeling every single time you walk into a new vibration. Your body's really feeling it because your body's totally in the present. Your value system is moving away from where it's been, going to a whole new place, and it's taking the clarification stone with it. The reason you're feeling lost is because you're on a new path. You're not lost. Just keep walking. Okay.
There you go.
I mean, that's pretty definitive. And I don't usually have them all lumped together like that, so go for it, lady.
Yeah, and if I can add, because I threw
Okay.
pyrite,
Dannay.
and I threw it on root and security. And when I threw it on there, that root, it just came to me, and even when the question was asked, it's really make sure that you stay grounded in all this. And that goes along with Nancy Jean's new, just going out there. So just get really grounded, root yourself down, and know who you are, know your values, and don't be shaken.
Yep. It hit on root and which and sacral, or
no, it said security.
oh, that's root. Okay, yeah, that's
Root,
energies to understand are making themselves known to you. Trust me, when you start really, it's like, I kind of think you're at the point in your life where the universe is like the day in March in 1975 when this doctor came in and said, well, here's the baby. You're going home with it. And I went like, I'd never taken care of a baby before. I read the books, but, he's made it. He's 46 now. But it's kind of like, that's what you're being. You're being handed the new baby you. And you got to figure out how to nurture it, how to care for it, and how to help it grow. And that's why you are. So that's why you're feeling a little lost. Trust me. I was like, do I really have to leave? I just want to stay in this lovely hospital with this great food forever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, hit the thumbs up button, guys, because the more you do that, then the more the word gets out on us, and the more...
Oh, I can do that too.
Yeah.
I can hit the thumbs up.
That's right.
Because I'm...
He's watching your
There.
chat on his phone, guys. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I get this.
Do you have any other sort of closing? I have one question that I didn't get to you. What has been the persistence of shamanism? I mean, that it keeps going and going, and it goes underground and then it comes back up, and
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know if I have a great answer for it. It's one that I have been exploring. Why do all of the peoples of the world, wherever they are, in any parts of the world, have this same belief system?
Mm-hmm.
So I know it went away with science.
Mm-hmm.
No, we have a manufactured medicine that's
Mm-hmm.
taking the place of the natural medicine. So we all switched to Western medicine, and we pushed shamanism down into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
we tried to kill it off. But it's coming back again, and I don't have a really clear answer to it, except that we are moving
Away.
from one energy to a lighter energy.
Right. I think a lot of the things that buried shamanism were buried in ego because people became so individualistic. The shamanism requires a certain amount of spiritual basis and group. But the other thing I think that happened to shamanism is it never went away. We have Christmas trees.
Correct.
We don't have Christmas trees because Jesus was on the cross and said, oh, and by all means, worship wood, which I'm hanging from. I mean, really, think about it. And I don't mean to be rude, but I mean, really, he didn't. A lot of the subcultural things, a lot of the things I grew up with came from my Irish mother, her mother was off the boat from Ireland and was totally tied into all that kind of energy. And so I grew up knowing that when the bark is thicker on the trees, we're going to have a worse winter. And, when there are more nuts on the ground, it's going to be a harder winter. I mean, I remember I grew up where we had bad winters near Chicago. So winters were a big thing to watch out for. But there's a lot. They are. Now we're having to watch out for them in Texas, which is why why I moved to Texas, so I didn't have to do that. But there's a lot of the folk legends and things that run through family lore, and a lot of people who plant crops. That's why the Farmer's Almanac had all that astrology stuff in it for all those years. That's the first astrology stuff I ever saw. I saw a lot of astronomy stuff, but the astrology stuff came out of the Farmer's Almanac. People who get closer to the ground. But I think it has been persistent because it never went away.
Right.
It's always been there for us to reach out and touch it if we wanted to.
Right. And shamanism really is all about taking care of the planet and healing the planet that we are all part of. Mm-hmm. So it is a group thing. We are all connected. And so, of course, it wouldn't go away. And it will come back stronger, stronger, stronger. If it ever went away and ever got weaker, it probably didn't. So, that was a great question.
Mm-hmm. I'm not Mrs. Jean, whoever wrote that. It's sweet of you to think that. Jean is my middle name. You don't know my last name. So you put Mrs. Jean and Danny. Church and state-owned medical practices in Europe killed off the holistic practices and medicine women. Yeah, it's true. Somebody wrote about. It's true that when the Catholic Church wanted to control what healed you, and it was actually something they would say in sermons: "Only God can heal you, so don't go to the wise old women on the edge of the village." One of my sister-in-laws from my second marriage, her family had been the herbalists living in this little town outside of York. They don't even know when they got there. I mean, they'd been there so long. And I showed up and I had a horrible, horrible sinus infection. And she said, "Oh, let me go up in the hill." And I was like, "Oh, go up in the hill." And she went to the chemist and she got some glycerin and she put some stuff together in this little kitchen she had that wasn't part of the house. It was a little... And she said, "Drink this." And it didn't taste bad. And I drank it. And she said, "And drink the other half tomorrow morning when you wake up." It was a sinus infection that with traditional medicines here would have taken 2 weeks to get rid of. It was gone the next day.
Wow.
And I asked her and she said, "Oh, we've been just doing it forever." And she was really angry because none of her kids wanted to learn it. And then a young woman and man showed up in the village and said, "We'd like to learn from you." So they worked at the local pub and they went out and they were learning it from her because they understood she was of that group. So I've seen this work.
So here's something. We had a shaman rabbit.
Okay.
And here's what I mean by that. We collect animals. Well, my wife does. Mm-hmm. And we got this rabbit that had a really bad eye infection. Mm-hmm. And it couldn't see. And so we didn't really let it out too much. We let it live in a back room that we had, the guest room. And it would run all around the guest room. And but no predator could come to it because it was literally blind.
It couldn't see, right.
Right. And so, we took it to the vet, and it was going to be like $1,500 or something. And I went, no,
Not today.
I don't think I would spend that on me. So I'm like, no, just probably because I don't trust the medical profession. But anyway, and so I said, you know what? I'm not happy. I don't think the rabbit's happy being in here. Let's just let it out, and whatever happens is going to happen. We had at that time, we had an herbal garden in our backyard, and it had all these herbs, and some of them were growing a little wild. And the rabbit went out there, dug holes everywhere underneath the house, and it started eating these herbs. It self-medicated itself and healed its eye.
Good. They know. They're better than we are.
They know. So I went to that rabbit, and I tried to talk to it, and it wouldn't give me any advice.
Well,
nothing. So
maybe there's a lesson in this. Anyway, I have tied Dannay up for over an hour. I've tied y'all up for over an hour.
Fun.
And it's fun, and I would love to keep going, but I have a real thing about not being... I hate to leave things when they're not quite done, so I want to make sure if I tell you it's an hour, we're done. And I want everyone to admire Dannay's cute picture in his bathrobe. That was Dannay's bathrobe tarot in the 1500s.
Yeah.
No, 1758, I think is when that was done.
Well, I still had a head.
That's true. So it was, yeah. So, thanks so much to everyone who came in and chatted. Next week, the first one I know for sure I have is Dr. Maggie Doolittle, my pet psychic friend, is going to be on with me on Tuesday.
Oh.
And I may do a drop-in if I come across something I really think I need to talk about. Thank you all for your likes, your shares. If you haven't subscribed to me or Dannay, run over there and do that. I don't know who's not subscribed to Dannay. His numbers are so wonderful. But we really appreciate your support, and
yes,
we want to be here for you too. You can go to my community page.